morning, gentlemen. Happy Friday. Today's August 8th, 2025, and good morning. So, again, as I mentioned before, with these videos that I'm doing, me and my lady, we broke up, and she went back home. So, you know, we're working on ourselves and trying to get better for us as a couple, working on the issues that we have. I mean, you know, obviously you would like to work on certain things that are happening in the relationship together as a couple. But I think with the issue that we have is unique, and we decided to, her family decided to intervene and tell her to come back home. And one of the issues that we had was substance abuse. Now, I made a video yesterday talking about substance abuse in terms of alcohol consumption. You know, everybody drinks alcohol for the most part. You know, some people obviously more than others. And some people use that as a coping mechanism for past trauma. And just like when it comes to smoking marijuana, you know, I started when I was, 16 years old. And I've been doing it ever since. There's been periods of time where, you know, I stopped, and, you know, because of jobs and things of that nature. And, you know, now being 52 years old, you know, you look at it as like, you know, some things you can't continue to keep doing because of the way it affects you. Like with anything, alcohol, marijuana, you have to have a measured outlook or a measured mindset when you do those things. You know, most people drink socially, and then sometimes those things turn into, now I need to have a drink because, you know, I'm pissed off at this particular person, or I'm pissed off at, you know, my boss, and I just need to unwind. Just like marijuana. You know, a lot of people say, you know what, man, I just need to unwind, man. I just need to go ahead and smoke one and, you know, relax a little bit. Substance abuse is substance abuse, whether it's marijuana being legal, whether it's alcohol being legal, whether it's too much marijuana you're smoking, whether it's too much weed you're smoking. You know, everything has its place and time, and too much of anything is not good. So we spoke yesterday, and, you know, I explained to her, hey, listen, you know, one of the problems that I had in a relationship, you know, is the alcohol consumption. You know, going out on the weekends, you know, we live in Vegas, so, I mean, obviously that stuff is all over the place, right? And we would go out a lot of the times, and, you know, when we first went out, it was cool, you know, Chardonnay for her, Heineken for me. You know, I'd have two, you know, she would have one or two, and things would be okay. You'd go home, and after a nice evening, dinner, dancing, you know, we're adults, so we do what adults do, and wake up in the morning and eat breakfast and drink coffee. And but after a while, the drinking became, okay, now let me back up. You know, I used to drink when I was back home in New York, all right? And I was about 20-something years old. My grandmother passed away in 96. I was living in a house with her, and my family was I don't want to say entertainment like we were in entertainment, but, you know, a lot of times my mother would have her friends over. They would play bid whist. You know, she used to smoke cigarettes. I never really saw alcohol consumption on any huge level. I just noticed the cigarette smoke, and obviously adults being what adults are. I'm pretty sure maybe a vodka here and there were floating around, but again, we were kids, so we never really saw that. But my grandmother, we had a full-length bar in the basement, and so when she passed away in '86, I remember because that's when Hard Knock Life dropped on the radio. Jay-Z's Hard Knock Life dropped on the radio, and but prior to that, they had called me and said, "Hey, listen, we're calling, because you're the next of kin." And I'm like, "What the hell does that even mean, next of kin?" Because my grandmother was in the hospital at the time, and I was supposed to go out with this girl, nice girl, at that time of my life. Living back home in New York, she's a little sick, nice. I was going to go to the movies with her. And when I got the call, I could not find the keys to the car to pick her up. And delayed. And the next thing you know, I got that call. So I rushed out to the hospital on Long Island. And I forgot the name of the hospital though. I got there and I heard my aunt screaming and hollering over the phone, and the blinds to my grandmother's window and her hospital room were drawn shut. Now, prior to that, because I had just saw her, I want to say maybe hours earlier. I went there to go visit her. When I walked in the hospital room, she was asleep. So I just wanted to, leave a little note. She had woke up in that process, and I said, Grandma, love you, and just coming here to say hello, see how you're doing. And after that, she gave a look, not at me, but she gave a look like something was behind me, and she gave just a blank stare. I want to say maybe for maybe 10 seconds. I'm like, Grandma, what do you see? What's going on? Now, at that time, I wasn't a spiritual person, but I am sort of kind of like now, I guess, a spiritual person. My faith is Islam, and I'm a Muslim. Been a Muslim for some years now. But in any case, I can only assume that as a person that is about to leave this plane of existence, you might have seen something. But that's another video. So in any case, I left. I was supposed to go out with this girl, and I got the call that she had passed away. Now, I say that to say this: we had that full-length bar in the basement, and of course, being 20-something years old in '96, I started to drink and smoke weed. I've always smoked weed since I was 16. And so I just started to smoke, and I started to drink. And I had a friend who would come over, and him and I would do the same thing. He would drink, and, I would drink, and we would smoke, go out, party, come back home. Well, he'd go to his house, I go to my house, and we would do the same thing all over again the next day. And I didn't see how destructive that became, or that was, because again, by myself, 27 years old, grandmother just passed away, I got pain, I got trauma, and whatnot, having to deal with that by yourself, and having to. Now, I didn't have to view her body. They asked me if I wanted to, but I said no. So we had the funeral, everything else, and that was that. So in those situations, people, yes, do tend to drink, and it becomes destructive because they're hiding pain, or they're trying to mask and cover pain. That was mine. So after some time of me doing that, I stopped. Still smoked weed. From the culture I came up in, and all that, from where I came from and stuff like that. That's where, we smoke weed, getting a little ciphers and whatnot, talk about, the system and, God and, trying to rationalize thought processes and things like that, right? So now, fast forward to the situation that I'm in now, I see the hurt and I see the trauma. And, one thing that is hard to do and one thing that you shouldn't do unless you're a licensed professional is try to confront somebody about their substance abuse, whatever it might be. Because you don't necessarily have the knowledge and the tools to recognize what could be a trigger for the individual that you're speaking to, trying to get them to see what they're doing could be harmful to them and also the ones that they love. So in this situation here, when we started to go out a lot more, I started to see a little bit more of the drinking, right? So I figured, one night you get drunk, it's all right, tipping over and stuff, you're having a good time, right? Because I've done that more than once, right? Maybe 3 times within our relationship. And I realized that was destructive and I could not do that anymore, because that also renders the next individual, the individual that you're with, helpless in a sense, because if anything were to happen, they can't watch you and then defend you both, right? So a lot of times I would tell her that as well too. I'm like, listen, everybody drinks, I drink and I smoke, but at the same time, we can't overdo it, right? And when I would tell her that, she would give me a lot of pushback. Well, I'm your lady, your role is to protect me, and I can do whatever I want, and you're supposed to be able to take care of me and watch me. And that mindset always bothered me, because in that scenario or in that statement, the individual is removing the responsibility and the accountability from themselves and placing it on the next individual or the next person, in this case me. So I had to not only protect us, but watch her and watch myself and watch our surroundings. And I'm a man, so I can do those things. But at the same time, why would we have that mindset to say to ourselves, I want to do what I want to do, I don't care? It becomes destructive, right? And long story short, I didn't want to go out anymore with her. I still wanted to be with her, still loved her, but I tried to confront the situation and say, hey, listen, this is hurting us, babe. Let's look at this. I have one Heineken, maybe once a month now. Worst case scenario, I have 2 Heinekens a month. And weed, I just actually had a smoke last night. But prior to that, it's been 6 months. So trying to confront someone with a substance abuse issue is difficult, because that means that they have to confront a lot of the demons that they have, whatever it might be. Now, a woman will tell you what she wants to tell you, and I'm not saying that in a malicious manner or trying to be mean or funny, but people do it. Women, men do it as well, right? A woman will tell you what she wants you to know, but no more. And now you're looking at it, okay, well, thanks for the, thanks for sharing, I kind of understand you a little bit more now, so now I understand why you do the things that you do for the most part. But the most inner hurt and the most deepest resentment of a person's self, they will not share with you. And I get why. Fear of judgment, fear of being too vulnerable. And again, I'm making this channel and telling these stories to be vulnerable, to shed light on, us men that go through these things. Not like women don't have issues and go through what they go through, but a lot of the issues that brothers have, they don't speak about, and they keep it bottled up inside, and it does manifest itself in drinking and smoking, and also, trying to sleep with anything that moves, right? So we have to, as men, try to become stronger for ourselves, because if we're not strong for ourselves, we can't be strong for the people that we love and we care about and we want to protect. Having a mindset of, you know what, this shorty looks good, but let me talk to her. Let me see where her mind is at, right? Because, one thing my imam always told me when we would talk, and, he would say, a woman will tell you everything you need to know about her in 5 minutes if you just listen. And a lot of brothers, me included, we listen, but we listen to the breasts. We listen to the thighs. We listen to, when she's walking away, the booty shaking and stuff like that. That's what we listen to. And in that time that we're listening to those things, as it's called our nafs in Islamic terms, we are listening to our inner selves, our desires, right? What we would like to have, right? And then after that, we make those decisions that impact the rest of our lives. I've been married to my daughter's mother, and I've been married also to Islamically. My Islamic wedding lasted 8 months, or my Islamic marriage lasted 8 months, and the woman who I was married to at the time, she was a Muslim sister, obviously, hijabbed up, everything covered. But her mouth was so foul, and her attitude was so bad that I could no longer be within that situation, right? She would try to hit. And again, not disparaging Muslim sisters. I love my Muslim sisters, and I love my African American sisters that are Christian. And it's not a religion thing. It's not, well, Muslim sisters are better than Christian sisters, or secular sisters are not good at all, or secular sisters are better than Islamic sisters, and the like. It's a person issue, and in this case, the woman, right? It's a woman issue, right? I don't care if you're wearing a hijab. I don't care if you're wearing a kufi. Bad behavior is bad behavior. And just because you submit yourself to a deity and you pray 5 times, or you pray 1 time, or you read and this, that, and the third, that doesn't make you a better person unless you yourself want to change. So again, gentlemen, this is Black Rhino with the Rebuild Room. I might continue this video later on and make it a part 2, or maybe a part 3, because this video is part 2 to the one that I made yesterday. I'll get a chance to upload these videos, man. Just my work schedule is crazy, and sometimes I get home, I just kind of want to relax and kind of unwind a little bit. But I'll try to get these videos uploaded, guys, so you guys can see them. Again, if you like the content, please comment, subscribe, and drop a super thanks if if you feel this thing is meaningful to you, so we can help build this channel. All right, guys, take care.